Alright, everybody, welcome back to Major Gaming, and today we're gonna go over something that came up in the Slasher Radio interview with Mathieu Cote. I am so happy Mathieu Cote confirmed that Stranger Things Vecna, A, can still come to the game, and B, would still be a full chapter if he were to come to the game. Because so many people argued the dumbest arguments as to why both Vecnas just couldn't possibly be in the game, and Behavior would never do that, and they would never push Stranger Things Vecna in the game because D&D Vecna's in the game. Like, they would just never do that, and here he is, right here, telling them all they were wrong. They were so wrong, and it's great. It's wonderful because these people were for some reason unreasonably stubborn, some of them. And I was like, why are you willing to die on this hill so hard? Like, all I would say is, like, there's really not a reason why they both can't be in the game. They're different characters with different powers. There's no real reason as to why they can't be. And they just would not let up at all. There were so many weird arguments that made no sense at all. So, yeah, we're going to go over that. We're going to start the video and go over play by play what Mathieu Cote says in the interview. Thank you, Cote, for doing this. All right, let's go.
And it was really just something that I wanted you to be able to speak on and let people know. And this is another thing as well that I've seen a lot of, and I've been spent probably more time than I'm proud of arguing with people over. When Vecna was announced, there was a lot of Stranger Things stuff that was brought up. And I personally think it's, being a big fan of movies, how anyone is mad about source material is just something my brain can't comprehend. Yeah. And I just wanted to give you a chance to speak on, that disconnect there, to where they're getting something that was based on and something that was different.
So what he brings up here is the fact that Vecna from Stranger Things is based on Vecna from D&D. Now, I've watched Stranger Things, and I didn't know anything about Dungeons and Dragons before watching Stranger Things. I knew nothing. I knew of its existence, but I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know what a Vecna was, or a Mind Flayer, or a Demogorgon. I just kind of, watched the show. But even in the show, it's plainly obvious that these monsters are not actually the D&D monsters, but the kids are just referring to them as that because they have no other explanation for what they are. You're seeing it through a kid's eyes as, whoa, big monster? That's weird. The only reference I have is D&D because I love playing D&D, so I'm gonna name this thing a Demogorgon, even though it's probably not really that, but, why not? We gotta give it a name so we know what we're talking about here, so Demogorgon, Vecna, Mind Flayer, these things aren't the actual things from D&D. And they explain this very clearly in the show, so I don't understand the confusion. I don't understand how you could possibly be like, oh, well, that's the real Vecna. No, that's not even Vecna. Stranger Things Vecna is not Vecna. Vecna is a nickname given to him by the kids. But he is not a Vecna. He is not a magical person. He just has that. He doesn't even refer to himself as Vecna. He doesn't call himself Vecna. He doesn't even know what a Vecna is. So, I don't. He's not a Vecna. He's just called Vecna, and he's popularized as Vecna because of that's just what the kids in the show call him. It's so weird. But alright. And Matthew is going to explain this in a second.
I'm super annoying to argue with, according to my friends, because I tend to very easily put myself in the other position. And I usually am very reluctant to dig my heels in a position because I know I've been wrong so many times. So I try to be a little malleable about the way I talk about these things. But like source material, you're right. It is the true thing. In this case, Vecna is from Dungeons and Dragons. There are no two ways about it.
Right.
But there is a character called Vecna in Stranger Things, and it's a great character. He's called Vecna because that's what the kids call him, because that's their reference point. He doesn't call himself Vecna. That's not his name. He's not a lich. He's not an undead sorcerer. That's not it, right? It's not the same character. It's just a character that's got that nickname in a different format. That being said, I understand that for many people out there, the only time that they heard that name, especially people maybe of a different generation, the only time that they've heard that name was in relation to Stranger Things, which is also in our game. So it's absolutely understandable that they would jump to that conclusion and therefore might experience disappointment because that's not what they thought was going to happen. I totally get that.
I don't, because like I said, it's two different characters. Both can be in the same game, and the show makes it very clear where the name of the character comes from. Dungeons and Dragons is well known within like the Stranger Things world as like something the kids do, and that like it doesn't make sense to me because Dungeons and Dragons is a thing in the show. So I don't understand how you could think like, oh, you double cross me doing this. It's like, no, he really didn't. They're two separate characters. There's nothing stopping them both from being in the game. Like, Jesus.
And to me, it's not a function of being the true Vecna or no, you should know better. It's the fact that this is what we decided to do. There's no denying that Vecna is part of Dungeons and Dragons, and it was certainly not our intention to sort of pull the rug from under them or mislead anybody in thinking that it was going to be something when it's not. Absolutely not. And it's to be absolutely transparent in this, it would never prevent us to do a chapter and add the Vecna character from Stranger Things.
So yeah, he just says it right there. But it's just crazy that he has to clarify this. Like, this should be common sense. It should just be like a thing people know. Like, there's like, I don't understand like him having to explain this and be like, look, we just wanted to do Dungeons and Dragons. We thought it would be cool. We wanted to do it. We thought it was a cool idea, and it's our game, and we just wanted to do a chapter we wanted to do. The fact that he has to explain that and defend himself is ridiculous. Just let them make the game they want to play, they want to make. If they love Dungeons and Dragons and they think they can make Dungeons and Dragons work in DBD, and since the PTB's out, many people are loving the fact that Dungeons and Dragons is in DBD. They think Vecna is like one of the thematically best characters in the game. The map looks beautiful. The abilities the survivors have look super fun. Like, people are loving the chapter. It's a really well made chapter. So they made the right decision going with this, and there's no downside. It doesn't stop Stranger Things Vecna from being in the game. So chill. He shouldn't have to defend himself here. It's ridiculous.
These two can live in the same Dead by Daylight world without a problem, right? Because they're not the same thing. It's not like adding a second version of Michael Myers. It's got nothing to do with it.
Well, since you brought it up, that is another thing that I was wondering, if that does it, argument's sake and living in a fantasy land, that does happen. Would that be a situation where the Vecna in the game right now would get a legendary skin, or you guys would just go a whole new character?
No, I mean, yeah, this is all theoretical at this point. But
If it
one thing
happened.
that's very clear is that those are two
Absolutely.
completely different licenses. They live in different worlds. They are the property of two different
Right.
entities. Therefore, there's no way in hell we would use a license and put a legendary skin from a different IP on an existing license. That's just not a thing.
Right.
Thank you. I don't, like, God, Jesus. There were people like the whole, oh, well, Stranger Things Vecna will probably just be a skin. Why would he be a skin? Why? Why? Like, there's no like Matthew just said, there is no reason why they can't both be in the game as two separate killers. We have Hillbilly and Leatherface. We have Legion and Ghostface. We have what was it? I forgot. Hillbilly and Leatherface, Legion and Ghostface, and then like there are other killers in the game similar to each other that can be separate. I mean, it's not a big deal at all. Hillbilly, oh, Trapper and then Jason in the future. That was the one I was thinking about. If Jason comes to the game in the future, he is not going to be a skin for Trapper. He's just not. Stop saying that. They will not do that. They will not waste Jason on a Trapper skin. They won't. Like the Matthew's whole like demeanor during this, he's just like, why the hell am I explaining this to people? He literally actually kind of looks annoyed by the question. The idea of this even being something that he's going to be bugged about. He looks annoyed. You see it on his face. He's like, what? Like, what? He even said, there's no way in hell they would do that. Like, he could have just been like, nah, that's not going to happen. No, he emphasized, he was like, there is no way in hell this is going to happen. What the hell are you thinking? Like, literally, he just, like, like, there is no way in hell that will happen. So Jason will not be a Trapper skin. He will not. He will be his own character. There's no way they don't do that. And Vecna will not be a Vecna skin. Stranger Things Vecna will not be a D&D Vecna skin. It just won't happen. It doesn't make sense, and it's just not necessary. Why would Behavior want to lose money like that? It makes no goddamn sense. Like, Stranger Things Vecna is not summoning skulls and shit. It's just not happening. So, yeah.
And it would make no sense because Victor Creel, I believe his name is in Stranger Things, doesn't use magic, right? He doesn't summon skeletons. That's not what he does. It would make no sense.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that going around, and trying to explain it to people was tiring.
Yeah.
We were talking about it though before you guys hopped in, among other things.
Yep.
All right. So yeah, that was the interview with Slasher Radio there. Make sure you go check out Slasher Radio. Go check out the full interview. It was a good interview, and Slasher Radio, they always do good interviews. So yeah, it's a very entertaining interview. Please go check out Slasher Radio. Give them a like. Subscribe because they're pretty cool. But yes, so like the reason why I got so annoyed by some of the arguments was like they were so ridiculous. Like there was one guy who was like, well, the two Vecnas will never be in the game at the same time because if I'm playing Swift and I call out Vecna, it might get confused as to which Vecna I'm talking about. I explained to this guy. Now, he was one of the least stubborn ones, okay? Now, this argument baffled me. You have no idea. So yeah, the the idea that Stranger Things Vecna cannot be in the game as a character because in Swift on voice comms, which is something that's not even in the game, you have to go to Discord or hop in a PlayStation party for that to work. Okay? in order for that to happen, it could possibly confuse the people you're talking to as to which killer it is if they haven't already seen the killer. Yeah. Now, you already have an advantage being in a Swift. You already have an out-of-game advantage being in a Swift. And you're complaining that that advantage could become confusing because you don't want to take the extra 2 seconds to specify which Vecna it is. Like, it's crazy to me. And it's also, now, he said this before Vecna was revealed, so I can't use this against this guy. But now that we know what Vecna's power is, if you see the magic chests in the match, you'll know which Vecna it is. You know, it's very obvious. Like, it's like a Wesker or a Nemesis where you're like, I see the boxes. A Plague where you see the things, you're like, it's that Vecna. And you don't even have to see the killer in order to know who it is. So, like, the idea that you could get confused because you say, hey, it's Vecna, and the other person can't take 2 seconds to ask which Vecna it is, and you can't specify, it's D&D Vecna. Like, that's why Stranger Things Vecna can't be in the game? Really? That's what you're going with? That's the argument? That it could confuse you while you're playing Swift? Because you don't want to take the extra 2 brain cells in order to just say D&D or Stranger Things Vecna? Like, you can't just specify. Now, that was an argument I saw. Now, there was another argument where someone was really stubborn and just would not give up, pretty much saying, like, Mathieu Cote said in an interview that they would never add similar killers to the game together if they're too similar. And I was like, well, the only similarity they have is their name. And he's like, yeah, the name, having the same name, that's too much. That's too similar. They would never do that. Fuck you. Because that guy, that guy making that argument was an asshole. Okay? He was so stubborn. So, fuck you. And, yeah, screw that guy. Okay? He deserves it, the way he was talking to me. Like, that's crazy. Because, yeah, that guy has been proven wrong. And now, my argument going against them was like, well, they could always just change their mind on that. Or, like, you know, certain circumstance, like, they weren't very specific about what they said was too similar. So, like, you know, and that could apply to anything. They're not going to make an original killer that's very similar to another original killer. Like, that's just obvious, you know? But if they can make it work, they will, and they will try. Like, they're a pretty creative company, considering how many characters they have and how different most of them feel. There's like 30 characters, and they all feel different. Like, for the most part, they're very different characters, so it doesn't make sense to be like, oh, you know, they're too similar because they have the same name. It's like, they have 2 chainsaw rednecks in the game that play completely differently from each other. One zooms around with his chainsaw around the map, and one swings it like this back and forth with a jolly little walk like that. Like, they're 2 completely different characters, and one was literally based off the other. So, and then I had another guy arguing with me that Stranger Things does use magic. And I'm like, they don't use magic in the show. When do they use magic in the show? Like, it's not magic. It's like, it was the powers that Eleven and Vecna have were created scientifically in a lab. It's not magic. There's no like magic item that's creating these powers or creating these monsters. These monsters are in another dimension, you know, and they're natural beings. Like, they don't just, they're not created through magic. They're not magical. They're essentially animals on another planet. Essentially. Now, do I think that there's some sort of, like, heavy, like, it's not reality, obviously. I'm not saying it, like, Stranger Things is, like, reality based. But it's not specifically magic. Not in the same way that magic is in D&D. It's not magic. In the Stranger Things universe, these things just happen naturally. Now, to us, obviously these things are not happening naturally. But in this world, they are essentially set up the rules to be that these things just exist in the world. And that it's not a matter of magic or any meddling with reality. These things just happen in this world, and in this world can be scientifically explained. Not necessarily that it's realistic, but in this world it follows the rules of the universe. And the rules of the universe do not say that these things are magic. They say that these things are capable of happening through science. So the idea that Vecna from Stranger Things uses magic is just wrong. He's not doing anything magical. He's technically following the science of the world he's in. Is it based on real science? No, obviously not. But Stranger Things science is the explanation for his powers, the Upside Down, the Demogorgon. Like, that is Stranger Things science. That's not magic. So, yeah. Those were the three arguments I saw that were, like, really baffling to me. Like, so, I just wanted to really go over this and be like, hey, that way if anyone else ever tries to argue with me about it, then I could just send them this video and be like, look, you're wrong. You're wrong. Stop. You're wrong. And I'm happy that Stranger Things Vecna is a possibility. Matthew knows people want Stranger Things Vecna, and I'm sure he will try to make it work if he can. I guarantee you, alright, I don't want to say guarantee, but I am 99% sure that by the time season 5 of Stranger Things comes out, or a little bit after, Stranger Things Vecna will be in D&D, DBD. I mean, DBD, not D&D. So, I guarantee it. By the time Stranger Things Season 5 comes out, or around that time, or a little bit after that time, Stranger Things Vecna will be in DBD. I can, if Mathieu Cote can get the license. Obviously, I can't predict whether or not Netflix will allow it, but I know that Mathieu Cote will try. I'm 99% sure that he will try very soon to try and get that license if he has not already. And the way they talked in the interview, he was like, well, this is all hypothetical, theoretical, so he could just be defending the idea that no, this isn't, he's saying this isn't happening right now. It's just a theoretical, but, I think he's going to go for it soon, and not next year, but the year after we might get. I don't know, maybe Vecna will be that killer. Nah, I doubt it. I think Vecna won't come out this year at all, but next year possibly. So yeah. That'll be it for this video. Like, share, comment, subscribe if you like the video. If you want to check out my other videos, I do rework videos, character concept videos, like how I would rework Myers and how I would rework Freddy, stuff like that. So yeah, other than that, everyone have a good day.